Hello everybody, welcome to today's show. This is a big one. I love it when I see action taking place. Trump and Johnson are going head to head with all the measures against Biden and Harris to help the American people out. We have Johnson, who unveils some new things, talking to an NBC host who he literally lays out with the facts and fights with her tooth and nail because she literally tries to lie the entire time, and they get into it and it gets really heated. But I love that they're standing up for the truth. On top of that, Trump has unveiled more tax cuts in his latest rally, working with hand in hand with Elon Musk, talking about the big changes that they want to make. Right now, we spend an exorbitant amount of money on federal agencies, and they want to reduce it and give all that money back to the American people. I love it. On top of that, JD Vance is also fighting with a lot of news anchors on top of with the going over the Venezuelan gangs, where the news anchor literally blows it off, saying that it's like something normal, and they get into it big time. On top of that, Kamala Harris is losing big time in the polls, despite her campaign has received over $1 billion in donations to beat Donald Trump. She is still losing in 6 out of the 7 swing states because she's just that bad. We got more breaking news for you today. Just want to say thank you to everybody that's watching. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing so I can serve you every day with the top news. And if you don't mind, click the thumbs up like button. It really does help to grow the channel. And just want to say thank you to all the new members of the channel, like Lydia Erickson, all those Linda at Jump, Gial Palframan, Deanna Scott, all the members in the chat. Thank y'all so much. We're so excited about what we're going to be able to do for the hurricane victims. And thank you to everybody that gives a super chat donation. Remember, in about a week, we are going to be doing a huge donation live on stream to show everybody this channel is going to give back. So we appreciate y'all, appreciate your support. And guys, I'm telling you this is great stuff. I hope you got some popcorn. You're going to enjoy this. Check this out.
Let me move on, though. We're 3 weeks from Election Day. Former President Trump continues to make false claims. Let me read you a couple of them. Venezuelan gang members have overrun an apartment complex, he says, in Aurora, Colorado. Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio, are eating cats and dogs. FEMA funds have been redirected to house migrants. Mr. Speaker, all of those claims have been debunked. If former President Trump is so confident in his policies, yes, they haven't. But if former President Trump is so confident in his policies, why not make the argument along policy lines? Why say things that have been debunked by local officials?
President Trump is making all sorts of arguments constantly. He works 24 hours a day. I saw that Kamala Harris issued her medical records. Congratulations. Donald Trump's health is on display for the entire country every hour of every day. He has more stamina and mental acumen and strength than any political figure probably in the history of the country that I can remember. He goes nonstop. So what he's talking about is the things that the American people care about.
Yes.
Is FEMA dollars going to resettle migrants? That is a fact. I mean, that is an objective fact. What he's talking about, it's not the disaster relief fund, but it's another fund that FEMA used to resettle all the illegal aliens that they let across the open border.
Mr.
Kamala
Speaker,
Harris, the border czar, was the engineer of that.
I do have to, the FEMA funds were not redirected to house migrants. That has been debunked. It's a separate fund.
Do you hear the just audacity of this news anchor who is literally speaking to the Speaker of the House of Congress, who is in charge of the purse of the United States, and she's trying to tell him how things are happening with his own job. Do you see how they try to twist this crap so much? But let's hear Mike Johnson take her out.
FEMA has said as much.
That's right.
But just to the substance, why not make the argument on the substance of the policies, Mr. Speaker?
I'm trying to do that. Let me do that. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, as its name implies, should be working on federal emergency management, not resettling illegal aliens that are violating federal law. They're sending them around the country. They're putting them on taxpayer benefits, and that has enraged the country. That is why Kamala Harris's numbers are dropping in the polls. And she just said in her own words, you saw the tape there, there is no difference between her and Joe Biden. The Biden policies, Bidenomics, all the things they champion are destroying the country, and everybody knows that, and that's why Donald Trump is elected. Republicans are going to win the Senate and the House.
Mr. Speaker, we should note that FEMA funds were actually redirected on Donald Trump's watch to deal with the migrant issue. Let me ask you,
Watch
you mentioned
this.
the medical
No,
records.
no, ma'am.
Should
No,
Trump-
wait a minute. No, that's
Yes,
hold on, wait a minute. Wait,
Let's
facts are
go.
important. That is a new program that started in 2020 under Joe Biden. That funding wasn't necessary under Trump.
I'm sorry. I just love this. You cannot tell somebody who is the Speaker of the House, who is in charge of the entire thing, how things are when he is the dude that signs off on everything. This is the truth that people need to hear.
Administration, because we secured the border. We didn't invite illegal aliens and dangerous people into the country. That's a Biden-Harris policy, and everybody knows it.
Mr. Speaker, it did happen under Donald Trump's watch, but let me just ask you about medical records since you
No, we
raised them.
didn't. No, Kristen,
Should Donald
no, we did
Trump
not.
release
That
all
is
of
a
his medical
brand new
records?
Come
account.
on.
Should Donald Trump release all of his medical records,
he
Mr.
has.
Speaker?
He issued the records of his physicians. Kamala Harris issued her medical records as diversion because she's desperate because she's sinking in the polls. Donald Trump's health is on display. Everyone in America can see it. The man works nonstop. He never quits. He probably sleeps 4 hours a night. He doesn't require as much sleep as the average person. He's an unusual figure. And this is the strength that we need in a time like this. We're in the most dangerous moment since World War II. You have to have strength. You have to have a steady hand. You have to have a commander-in-chief that our allies respect and our enemies fear. They do not fear Kamala Harris.
Ain't
They
that
do
the
fear
truth?
Donald Trump.
Mr. Speaker,
That's what people are going to vote on.
Just to be very clear, he hasn't released all of his medical records. He released 2 letters. Should he release the results of the
It's
cognitive test?
unnecessary.
He
He's on
said,
display every minute.
so it's unnecessary. You concede that he didn't release his medical records. You don't want to know things like his cholesterol level, whether he's dealing with any issue that we may not know about if he's going to be commander-in-chief. And he also said he would release cognitive tests,
listen to your
which he
question.
aced. Should he release that?
The American people, Kristen, the American people don't care about the cholesterol level of Donald Trump. They care about the cost of living and the fact they cannot
Let's
pay
go.
for groceries
Okay.
because Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's policies have put them in that situation. The medical records are irrelevant. Let's talk about things that the American people care about. That's why Donald Trump is surging in the polls, because he's doing that on stages, in interviews, nonstop around the clock, and Kamala Harris has done nothing. Every time she talks, her numbers go down because she is uniquely unqualified to be the commander-in-chief at one of the most dangerous times in the history of the country.
Mr.
That's a
Speaker,
fact.
Let me tell you that. He just laid the bomb on her. Because right now, check this out. This is the latest polls, everybody. We got Donald Trump. This was done today, winning 329 electoral votes compared to Kamala Harris's 209. This is a huge, huge increase. This is the truth, guys. I'm telling you. Every time, even SNL, over the past weekend, they did a bit on her. And I'm telling you what, when it gets to the point where they're making fun of the Democratic side as bad as they are, you know that they've given up. They're going to lose. And I'll tell you this, as much as she tries to pander to any type of side, she's not going to win. Gloria Flowers, thank you so much for joining the True Life News family. Everybody show Gloria some love in the chat. Guys, check this out.
About amnesty. She calls it a pathway to citizenship. It's amnesty. You break into the country, you're given citizenship. If that's so overwhelmingly popular, as Jessica says, why didn't the Democrats do anything about that when they had the House, the Senate, and the White House?
Exactly. Look, number one, Donald Trump leads on immigration in every poll that I have seen. So voters are with him on immigration. Number two, you're exactly right. Democrats had unilateral control of government. They had the House, they had the Senate. If this bill was the panacea for our border issues, well, you had 2 years to create your panacea. You chose not to do it because you don't care about the border until it's politically caustic to you. And also, you had the executive power that Donald Trump had to stop what's happening at the border that Biden failed to use until...
Did y'all hear that? So this is what I love. And I love doing this breakdown, y'all. Because I read the chat. I'm most of the time I'm reading everything that's coming through in the chat. But this is what I love. When Biden won, they had the House, the Senate, and Congress. They could have passed this amazing border bill that was going to be the toughest border bill in history, but they didn't because they wanted to let in over 20 million plus illegal immigrants into the country first, and then they wanted to try to pass a bill after they didn't have the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and then try to blame it on Republicans. And then now they're saying that this is the way forward. The facts matter. This is the truth.
3 years into his presidency. But the challenge, Jesse, is this election is going to be a battle between the power of the people and the power of the media. The power of the media is enormous. You've seen that Vogue cover where they tout Kamala as this candidate who was like manna that dropped from heaven. The ABC debate, it was 3-on-1. The 60 Minutes debate, or the 60 Minutes interview, they're editing her to make her look good. But the people, Donald Trump is ahead in 6 of 7 swing states. Mark Halperin said there is a realistic scenario where he sweeps 6 of those states.
Yes.
Quinnipiac, which leans left, has Donald Trump leading in 2 of the Rust Belt
about
states.
the Wall Street Journal
it's
today?
the people versus the media. And imagine if, you want to talk about the Wall Street
I
Journal,
do,
where it's
yeah.
neck and neck, where Donald Trump is still leading in about half of those states.
All of the swing states.
Our
and Mark
Real
Halperin.
Clear Politics average of polls, he is sweeping 6 of 7. And we know there's a polling bias that
all
goes
within
against
one.
Trump. Biden was 10 points up over Trump nationally this time around. You have Kamala, she's up 2. I'll take Trump's cards any day.
All right, and we're not calling it a red wave. It's just he happens to be winning every single battle.
Correct.
That's just not.
It's not a red. He's winning everything right now. And that's whenever people see that, just like this. So I have the breakdown over each of the individual states going down, and homeboy's winning. Trump is winning big time. I love it because I feel like people are truly seeing it right here, guys. Battleground margins, Arizona, Pennsylvania, all are plus for Trump. Even this is a different polling. 312 electoral votes where they have Trump winning. And I love it too because Trump is getting real people to represent him, not these establishment politicians, career politicians who have always done things a certain way, who have always been in the loop and been taken care of. No, he's bringing in real people like who I'm about to show you. Now, I cleaned up the video a bit because, we got to keep the channel clean. But what I love is that it's real talk. This is a guy who came up from nothing, has built a $1 billion plus business just like Donald Trump has. Listen to what he has to say. Shafiqa Rahim, thank you so much for the super chat. Hey, everybody show Shafiqa some love in the chat. Check this out.
It's true. There's going to be a shortage of tampons in this country because of so many. These people, ladies and gentlemen, are the bidders of the elites. They're puppets to the elites. They are liars. They will tell whatever story they want to tell because they are doing the bidding of others. And worst of all, they are incompetent. They're sick and incompetent. They have never, ever, ever worked in the private sector. No. They have never done what you've done, balanced a budget, started a company, had to deal with regulations. And both of them, their entire careers depend on taxpayer dollars. Now, she by herself is either, just look at her plans, her financial plans. How many of you here are concerned about the economy? That's why I'm here today. I'm concerned about the economy. Mm-hmm. She is either completely and totally financially illiterate, a dodo, a dunce, a dum-dum, because all you got to do is look at her plans. Anybody with basic math can tell you. Five-year-old. I got a 15-year-old. I got a 15-year-old here right now that looked at her economics. We sat down and talked about it. She's like, none of this makes sense. Okay? She wants to build 3 million homes when we need 4 million, and she let 20 million people in the country. She wants to raise taxes on the top 50%. They already pay 97.5%. She wants to give a $25,000 tax credit to first-time buyers. All that's going to do is increase the price of inflated homes already. And she wants to give $50,000 to new business owners as a tax credit when you got 2/3 of all the small businesses in America for now.
Man.
And her plan is to export California failed policies to the rest of this country. Harris and Joe broke the economy. Harris broke the border by herself. They have crippled the dollar, manufactured inflation, imported that killed millions of people. They want to take your guns if you have them. I got mine, okay? They want to silence your voices, and they want to break your family unit up. I know this sounds crazy. I know it sounds bizarre. If you're listening to this, you're like, there's no way that can be true, but that's how they get away with it. It's so bizarre, it's true. And they will try to do it. You and I need to do our part. Donald Trump has done his. Donald Trump has given up everything, almost gave up his life. This guy can fix the economy. Donald Trump can save the dollar. The U.S. dollar needs to be saved, by the way. He can protect your family unit. He can fix the housing problem in this country. It can be fixed. And he will stop this sick liberal disease that's spreading across our country. But he needs your help. He's done his part. We got to take him the rest of the way. November 5th, folks, donate your time. Donate your money. Put a sign in your yard before they take it from you. Put a sticker on your car that says Trump 2024. I'm with this shit. And let's make Donald Trump the 47th president of the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Man, I love it. Grant Cardone, I'm telling you, that guy, love how much he gives back, love what he's been able to do with business. But again, too, real people that actually built companies, created jobs, not just has been feeding off taxpayers their whole dang life. That's what bothers me, is that you got too many politicians that have never worked in the private sector, never had to answer or create a company or job. All they've ever done is try to manage people that do all this stuff. They do get up in the morning and have to worry about payroll and have to worry about building a company and whatnot. And that crap is hard. Even with the companies that I've built for me and my family, there's a lot of stuff you have to know. There's a lot of risk you have to take. But it's when you see that that's what makes America so great, is you have the opportunity to do that. And then you see these people that all they care about doing is taking all your hard-earned work, all your hard-earned money away. All they want to do is freaking increase your taxes because they want to spend more of your money, not theirs, more of your money. That's where you get upset. Check this out, because I'm telling you what, if you're not for them, they try to demonize you in every single way. And I feel like Americans are getting fed up with it. Check this out. You can't even believe that this is real, what you're about to see.
The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border? Americans are so fed up with what's going on. So fed up. And they have every right to be. And I really find this exchange, Martha, sort of interesting, because you seem to be more focused with nitpicking everything that Donald Trump has said rather than acknowledging that apartment complexes in the United States of America are being taken over by violent gangs. I worry so much more about that problem than anything else here. We've got to get American communities in a safe space again. And unfortunately, when you let people in by the millions, most of whom are unvetted, most of whom you don't know who they really are, you're going to have problems like this. Kamala Harris, 94 executive orders that undid Donald Trump's successful border policies. We knew this stuff would happen. They bragged about opening the border, and now we have the consequences, and we're living with it. We can do so much better, but frankly, we're not going to do better, Martha, unless Donald Trump calls this stuff out. I'm glad that he did.
Do y'all hear that? That this news anchor says apartment complexes are taken over, and she talks about it like it's nothing. These are people's lives. It's not, she didn't say home, she said apartment complexes. Apartment complexes consist of anywhere between 30 to 100 plus homes in a single location. And it's okay to say in the United States that gangs have taken them over and it's nothing. We shouldn't focus on that. These news anchors are so demented in how they think, and it just blows my mind that people still watch those shows. But check this out.
It hasn't even been 1 week since radio host Charlemagne the God told his audience that Donald Trump is beating Kamala Harris in the 2024 messaging war.
listen to a lot of reporters, and they'll be talking to Trump or J.D. Vance, and they'll be talking to them about things that are happening right here in America. Always America first. But then, you go to Tim Walz, and they're asking him about geopolitical politics. And I think a lot of times that makes them sound, very out of touch. When you hear the Vances and the Trumps talking about what's happening here at home and saying things like America first and make America great again, that messaging sometimes resonates a lot more.
Well, Harris is going to try and change his mind when she appears on his show, The Breakfast Club, this coming Tuesday. She's making a campaign stop in Detroit to announce economic proposals for Black Americans.
Angela Reese with the super chat. Thank you so much. Love the dancing person or whatever that is. Everybody show Angela some love in the chat.
Recent polling from the New York Times shows Black support for Democrats are slipping significantly since the 2016 election. Harris is hoping the recent support from former President Obama will help her on that front, as she sets her vice presidential nominee, Governor Tim Walz, on the case to win back the male vote, starting with this Minnesota hunting trip earlier today. I don't know, Sean. I mean, I was seeing, Tim Walz out there. He was on his pheasant hunting trip. We also have, I think, did you see the Kamala Harris, the real men for Kamala Harris, the new ad? Take a look. Let me see if this is going to get your vote. Oh, you know what? We don't have that. But anyways, I saw it, and what they're really trying to do right now, we're starting to see that Donald Trump is leading in the polls by double digits, by about 11% when it comes to the male vote. So Harris and Walz are out there, and they're trying to get the male vote.
So you have Democrats who have demonized the men in America, calling them toxic masculinity. Yep. And guess what? They don't vote for you when you demonize them like that. Tim Walz, Tampon Tim, with a gun and some blazed orange on going pheasant hunting is not going to work at all. People in Minnesota have moved to Wisconsin. They've lost a number of their residents because his policies have been so bad. But just going back to what Charlamagne the God is hoping that I think Kamala Harris will bring to the table when she visits next week is the fact that the economic proposals are going to be no economic proposals at all. What they're going to actually do is go, this is Democrat classic. I'm going to offer you giveaways. I'm going to offer you freebies. I'm going to give stuff away. I'm going to be like Oprah. You get a car, and you get a car, and you get a free this. That's all they can do. But to lower prices, there'll be nothing that Kamala Harris can talk about because she hasn't since she's been in this race.
Well, and Griff, Kamala Harris, they're actually being very clear about this. They're saying that she's going on Charlamagne the God not to talk about, Black Americans in general. She's going to talk about her economic plan and how it is going to help Black Americans. If you remember in 2020, you had Biden who said, if you don't know if you're voting for me or President Trump, then you ain't Black. But that is not why, which obviously was very bizarre. But Kamala Harris is going on this podcast to strictly speak about her economic plan, and that's what we've been saying she needs to do.
Yeah, I think the New York Times polling today is pretty significant, Nicole, because when you looked at 2016, the Democrats had 92% of the Black vote. It's down to 78%. They're clearly drifting, and in that 100%. Article, they quote a 63-year-old Black man that owns a business that said, hey, I've heard the racist things they say about Trump, but he's for the country. He's for the country. That's the quote he gave, and it really cuts through why Democrats are bleeding voters like that man. But can I just go back for a second to the hunting thing? Because, Sean, you're from the land of hunting. He walks around in a field in an orange jacket. He never fired the gun. The whole group allegedly shot one bird, but they couldn't find the carcass, and they've got dogs. These aren't just friendly pet dogs. These are skilled dogs. If you've ever been pheasant hunting, you go out in a field where you know it's been baited for pheasant, throw a bag down, the dogs mark it, it pops up, and you shoot it. Like, did it really affect male voters? Did he never fired the gun and they never shot any birds?
I think these campaigns are a little bit of a bust. But Lisa, the Washington Post brings up a very interesting point. So we know that Donald Trump is beating Kamala Harris by 11 points with males. But the Washington Post is saying, is the Trump campaign's male-dominated culture losing women votes?
Well, so no, because I think that what they can do, I still think there's a lot of opportunity for Donald Trump and J.D. Vance to bring up the numbers with female voters, particularly on the economy, because you look at that's the number one issue for men or for women. And so I think that's an area where they can get more women to come to their side. But regarding the challenges with male voters, I mean, Tampon 10 brings testosterone to the ticket in name only, right? And I guess Kamala Harris could probably start identifying as a man if she wanted. But I don't think that the reason why men are rejecting Kamala Harris has anything to do with the fact she's a woman. You know, we've got plenty of governors, both in blue states and red states, that are women. There are plenty of female leaders. I think the issue for Kamala Harris is sort of the lack of leadership and the perception of the lack of leadership. If you dive into that New York Times poll that was referenced earlier, Trump beats Kamala Harris by 20% on who they view as a strong leader.
Yes.
And so I think that's the issue for Kamala Harris, is men just view her as weak and ineffective. And I don't think that's because she's a woman. I just think that's because she's Kamala Harris.
Well, when former President Trump was asked about female voters, this is what he had to say from Aurora, Colorado.
I'm going to be a protector. You know, I said, I think we're doing very well with women. We're doing great in the polls. We're winning in all of the polls, just about. But somebody said, women love my policy, but they don't like me. I think they do like me. I'll tell you what. So they said, and I said a week ago, I said, I think women like me because I will be your protector, and I protected you for 4 years.
Well, 24 days until the election, and women's reproductive rights, IVF, all of that is on the ballots, and that does galvanize voters. So we're going to be hearing more from former President Trump this week. If you tune in to the Faulkner Focus this Wednesday, Harris Faulkner is going to host a Trump town hall with, get this, an all-female audience. Everyone's going to be asking questions. It begins at 11 a.m. Eastern, so be sure to tune in for that.
Hey, Sean Hannity. Let me tell you this, guys. What I love is that everything that they've said against Trump, they haven't backed down. They haven't been afraid. They haven't been trying to just, reword or try to flip-flop or anything like that. They've continued full steadfast on who they are and just representing that they're going to take care of America. That's, to me, what people care about, what people want. People want their dollar to be taken care of. They want their homes to be safe. They want a border that's actually secure. They want to know that they can afford to go to the grocery store. And what I love here is like the numbers that they are bringing out is insane of how much reduction that we could see with the federal government saving the taxpayers, not billions, trillions of dollars. Check this out.
If you're not going to rely on us as the currency of choice, then you are not going to be able to do business in the United States. You know what they're going to say? I love the dollar very much, every single one of them, because we are losing that. China is trying to take that away from us. And I'll say, by the way, I'll say the same thing to China. Like I put a 27.5% tariff on cars from China. So they haven't been able to pillage our country and close up our factories and lose our jobs. Otherwise, they'd be selling cars in here like hotcakes. And if you take a look at what they're doing to Europe, China is destroying the automobile business of Europe.
So I'm just trying to understand how you're going to pay for all of this no tax on stuff. And you said that there's a lot of fat in government
growth.
that you're going to save.
No, I said,
money.
I gave you an answer, growth. We're going to grow at a level that you've never seen before.
Okay.
And we're going to have tremendous jobs, and we're going to have companies coming in left and right, and they're going to be building factories. They're going to take over empty hulks that are all over the place from companies that left.
But you've also said that there's a lot of fat in government that you would want to slim
Incredible
down.
fat.
So what agencies would you want to shut down?
Well, let me have you ask another person that, because I'm going to have Elon Musk. He's
here.
Dying to do this. He's a great...
So look at this at the bottom. The federal government employs 2 million plus workers. So just understand, with all these agencies, I don't know how many are in each agency, but we did hear that Elon Musk said that he would reduce. But they feel like they could reduce 80% of the federal agencies, like just do away with them. Well, if they do away with them, what do those people do? Well, they don't have a job anymore with the federal government. Now, they would have something contingency and plan, because if you can't just do that, it would put, America into recession or whatever. But this just shows you how many people are employed by the federal government working off the taxpayers.
This guy, actually, you think of him for science and rockets, and every time I think he's telling me about a new screw that was developed, he's developed a new screw. Screws are difficult, and it's made out of titanium, and it's so exciting. But you know what? He's a great business guy. And he's a great cost cutter. You've seen that. And he said, I could cut costs without affecting anybody.
So he will be in the cabinet?
Not in the cabinet. He doesn't want to be in the cabinet. He just wants to be in charge of cost cutting. We'll have a new position, Secretary of Cost Cutting, okay? Elon wants to do that. And we have incredible people. He's running a...
Hey, have you ever heard of anybody before, whether it be the Republicans or the Democrats, who have ever said we're going to have a Secretary of Cost Cutting? That's why I love this dream team. Save the taxpayers' money, get us out of $36 trillion in national debt, and give it back to Americans. It's our freaking hard-earned tax money.
Business, he can't just say, oh, I think I'll go into the cabinet. Other people can. He can't. But Elon's a little bit different in that sense. And besides that, I want him to send the rocket up to Mars. He said, he's made me a promise he'll get to Mars before the end of my administration, which will be long before, hopefully, China or Russia. I created a Space Force. First time that's been done since the Air Force. Air Force was the last, was 81 years ago. And I did Space Force. And when Biden heard, he laughed. He thought it was so funny. He didn't understand. And he tried to end it. And the military went down on him. You wouldn't believe it. It's now going to be one of our most important things. We were getting killed in space by China and by Russia. And now we're leading in space.
Coming up,
Let me tell you this, guys.
Elon Musk.
That the things that they're doing with just the entire, not just the cabinet, but the team around Trump is like we've never seen before. Tell me the last time, let me know in the chat, when's the last time you ever seen how much just outside, non-traditional politician people have been brought into the mix, which this is what I love, because remember, in the very beginning, 1776, American Revolution, all this, when everything was formed, they didn't have politicians. They had normal people that put the government together, and they wanted a limited government. And I feel like for the first time ever, we're actually doing that again with Trump and the Dream Team. Check out what this guy has to say, because I'm telling you what, this to me is what's going to help take us to the next level.
I want to dig into some more pleasant issues. But this Barack Obama speechifying, I guess he was in Pittsburgh or someplace, gave a couple speeches, playing the race card. Not the economy, not the immigration, not crime, not safety, not anything. It's all about race. And he's telling the brothers, quote unquote, to get back on board. What do you make of that? How do you see this one?
I think it's deeply disappointing, Larry. Frankly, one of the encouraging things about this election is we're seeing the breaking apart of so-called ethnic coalitions. Many Hispanics, many black Americans coming aboard for the first time to the Republican Party to vote for Donald Trump. I think that's a beautiful thing. One of the accomplishments of the civil rights movement was to say that you can't predict something about somebody's content of character based on the color of their skin. Yet now the modern Democratic Party says based on the color of your skin, you're obliged to vote for a particular candidate. That's deeply disappointing.
Right there.
I'll give you one silver lining on this, Larry, is that when the Democrats lose this election, as I hope and increasingly expect they will, I hope it's their lesson that identity politics doesn't work. Because here's what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz actually both share in common. You think about this, one's a black woman, one's a white man. Both of them got their job as vice presidential nominee because of their race and gender. So it turns out identity politics doesn't work in any direction. It didn't even work when they tried to go with Tim Walz in that direction either. So when they lose, I hope that's a lesson, not just for Democrats, but for the entire country, that we're done with the race baiting, we're done with the identity politics, and we want a country that lifts all of us up, regardless of our skin color, and unites Americans based on our ideology, rather than our race, our gender, or our skin color. That'll be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, well said, Vivek, well said. Now, a fellow you know a week ago tonight, actually last Friday, interviewed a former president you know, and I want to just play some tape on what he had to say, because it goes to a lot of policy reforms that you also know about. Take a listen, please.
They insulted Elon, and now they're going to need him to restore power.
He was great. He came through. He does come through. He would be incredible on that commission, and we'll do
But that's the thing, and you not only cut spending, I think you can take a strong look at some of these agencies, and you know the ones I'm talking about, I mentioned them a moment ago, that really are not doing their job. They've become very political.
Well, the one thing we want to do is education. We want to move education back to the states.
Right.
We'll spend less than half. You have to see Washington. It seems like every building's Department of Education. For what?
All right, there you have it. He's going to start with education, kind of move down the line, Vivek. And I know that this is near and dear to your heart. So what do you make of it?
Yeah. Look, I think this is great because I don't think it's possible, Larry. Many conservatives in the past have wanted to go reform that bureaucracy, tinker around the edges, be incremental about it. I don't think that works. If you cut off one head of an eight-headed hydra, it grows right back. You have to go to the center of the beast and actually just dismantle it. So we're not in there to reform this bureaucracy. We want to get in there and actually shut it down. Shut down the Department of Education. Send that money back to the states and to the people.
Yes.
And not just the Department of Education, but I think countless other departments in the federal bureaucracy as well. I'm pretty convinced that you could take over half of the federal employees, remove them from the federal bureaucracy, and it would actually function more effectively rather than less. What Elon did at Twitter, I think, is what needs to be done across the entire federal bureaucracy. I'm very optimistic about the Government Efficiency Commission as well. And I think that a lot of the levers we're going to pull here, I think, go beyond just usual partisan talking points. This is about restoring self-governance, where the people we elect to run the government, for God's sake, are the ones who actually run the government again in this country, rather than that class of unelected bureaucrats, which has grown like a cancer in Washington, D.C.
You know, Vivek, listening to this brings music to my ears, too. But I want to ask a couple things. First of all, are you including what I will call the national security agencies? You may not wish to abolish them, but you may want to redo them, reform them, re-something, certainly repopulate them. And then there's the economic regulatory agencies, the SEC, the FCC, the FTC, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I wouldn't want to brush over them. I think every single one of those areas, at the very least, needs a house cleaning. Now, whether you can get away with abolishing some of them, as you suggest, I might be all for that. But they all need house cleaning, and they all need better people running them, not left-wing ideologues.
So I want to talk about those regulatory agencies for a second, Larry, because one of the most remarkable things that's been happening is that those agencies, the ones you named, three-letter agencies, from the FTC to the SEC to a number of others, to the EPA, they have been consistently, not even by like a little bit, consistently losing in federal court. So they're wasting public resources to go after different actors in the private sector. You've got fishermen cases, you've got private sector actor cases, you've got coal miners, that when they go to court, they are losing. So that means the agencies tasked with supposedly enforcing the law actually have no regard for the law itself. These agencies have lost their legitimacy. They've lost their constitutional legitimacy. The Supreme Court and the federal courts repeatedly slapping them down, saying that you are not enforcing the rules as you're supposed to actually have read those rules as Congress initially enacted them. One of the biggest events that happened was this year, overturning of Chevron deference in the Loper case. That changes the game entirely. Because before that, there was this general doctrine that federal courts had to engage in deference, had to defer to the interpretation of these administrative three-letter agencies. That is no longer good law. The law now is that agencies no longer receive that deference from federal court. This changes the game completely, Larry. Add on to that West Virginia versus EPA from 2 years ago that said if it's a major policy question, you can't write it by regulation. It had to be done by Congress. That quite literally means that a majority, literally a majority of those federal regulations are likely unconstitutional under current Supreme Court doctrine.
Right there.
That is the basis for mass regulatory reform of a kind we have not seen in modern American history. And I do think our founding fathers will be proud when we go in there and actually implement it, both by thinning out the regulations and by thinning out the bureaucracy that in many cases distorts those regulations to serve as a wet blanket on our economy. You want to grow the economy, the number one way to do it is this regulatory reform. Take that wet blanket off. That's how we make America great again.
And I don't want us to forget, though, on top of the economic three-letter agencies or whatever, you know, the national security establishment, both the structure, the institutions of it, and, of course, the embedded people who are running these things year in and year out. I think that's got to get a good look I mean, if President Trump wins, I think he's got to really spend some elbow grease and some time looking at the whole national. In some ways, that national security grouping of institutions, you know, Vivek, that thing is the same as it was when Harry Truman and James Forrester put up the Pentagon right after World War II. I mean, that's how far back these agencies go. The CIA is the same way. The FBI goes back even longer than that. But I'm just saying, let's not overlook those agencies either.
Absolutely. You're spot on about this, Larry. And this isn't particularly even a Democrat versus Republican point. This is a nonpartisan point. Taking a look at agencies that have lost their way, that in the name of national security have actually betrayed protecting American national security while creating civil liberty threats in the meantime. Virginia Military Institute, VMI, actually invited John Bolton and myself to have a debate. It was a respectful, at times heated, but respectful debate a couple of weeks ago. And I do think that there's room for generational perspectives of difference here, Larry, where if you grew up in the era of the Berlin Wall falling, you might have great trust in the U.S. national security state. But if you look at the failures of the last 20 years, you know that it takes a fresh perspective to say that the methods of 1980 aren't exactly what's going to give us deliverance today. I'd put the U.S. Federal Reserve, that's not in the national security state, but the same thing. Last 20 years, completely lost its way as a new managerial class has taken over. Same thing that happened in the national security state. So the way you're going to do this, I don't think is just through incrementally bringing the chisel. I think you got to bring the chainsaw with respect to the bureaucracy itself. And you know what? If you're always going to take a risk, right, Larry? I can't tell you we know we're going to cut the exact right amount. But the risk is, are you not going to cut enough? Or are you going to take the risk even of cutting a little too much, but then finding out you did and having to rebuild that? That's the risk I'm willing to take. I think we're willing to take. And if we're going to save our country, that's what our founding fathers would say if they were here as well. Sometimes you got to start with a blank slate and build up rather than trying to just tinker around the edges, which is a mistake that I think Republicans have made in past decades.
Big time. I'll tell you this, guys, that when there are things, when you look at Obama, when you look at Hillary Clinton in 2008 to 2010 to 2012, they were very more center left. Now, it's like the entire Democratic Party has gone far left. And that's the part where I feel like, man, if you just took out the past 10 years, just the past 10 years of policies and things like that, the United States would be in such a much better spot. But here's the exclusive that we're getting. You know, I love it. I love this type of stuff that you hear. I love my boy Scott Jennings, who goes on and tells them like it is on CNN, because for the past 5 years, the Democratic Party has basically been tearing down men. And now that they need their vote, they're trying to appeal to them. Check this out.
It was a rough week. I mean, her faves are down. They're struggling with, the front page of the New York Times this morning, Democrats struggling with African-American voters, particularly African-American men. This gender gap issue is real. It's a real problem, and you see the Democrats reacting to it. And I think what they are now finally in October, the election, coming to realize is that a lot of men think Democrats care more about dudes who want to become women than dudes who just want to be dudes. And no hunting, cosplay, or cringy videos is going to change it. The bet is made. Working class men, whether you're black, Hispanic, or white, persistently, consistently do not believe the Democratic Party, and specifically Kamala Harris, are going to do a thing for them. They've been told that they're the problem, and I suspect they're going to rise up on Election Day and tell the elites who told them that you're wrong.
And that's the thing, too, that when you get told and you're demonized the entire time for so many years, and then all of a sudden now I'm supposed to vote for you because you tell me because we have the same skin color, it's all a bunch of you know what, and it's all just politics at its best. We need real people, just like who you're about to hear, in leadership.
Hey, what, 20 plus days away from the election? How do you feel about the race?
I feel great. We're leading in all swing states. We're leading mostly in nationals, I think. You know, I'm a believer in polls. Some of them are fake, like a lot of writers. But I'm a believer in polls, and we're leading in just about every swing state. I think we're leading now in every swing state. And she can't talk. There's something wrong with the candidate, but I'll take it. But we have, I think we're doing very well, yeah.
What do you want to say to those voters out there who might be undecided, who don't know what they're going to do yet?
Well, I think we're going to have a lot of votes. We have something sort of special going on. We have tremendous support. They're so tired of seeing what's happened to this country. They're so tired of seeing the incompetence, seeing the border. And I think the border is maybe a bigger deal than even inflation. Inflation is a massive word. The bad economy is massive. The inflation made the economy bad. It made it impossible for people. But I almost think that when they see millions of people coming into our country, 13,099 murderers, many of them murdered more than one person. When they see that, I actually think I think the border is a bigger issue than even the economy. Those are the two big issues.
It's had such an impact, the open border.
And the other issue that's really big, I think, is how badly they've done with North Carolina, parts of Georgia.
Yeah.
When you look at what's happened, and Florida, we'll see what's happening there. I think we got a little bit lucky in the sense that it was bad, but it wasn't as bad as they thought. And a lot of governors have done a good job, but the response from the White House has been absolutely terrible. Her response has been terrible, so bad that they didn't even want. I see Ron didn't want her in Florida. Said, just don't even come here. So I think we're doing really well, yeah.
And of course, President Biden is blaming you for this bad response to these hurricanes, and the White House is calling it all misinformation.
They blame me for everything, and it's okay. When you look at our numbers, when you look at our economy, when you look at our job numbers, every single chart that you put up, we beat them by numbers that nobody's ever seen. We had the best economy in history. We had the best job numbers in history, and we had the best border in history.
Look, guys, check out these numbers at the bottom. Food prices are up 22%, shelter 23%, energy 29%. I mean, that hits a budget extremely hard. And when I think about what I showed you at the beginning of this video, where you have news anchors that have the audacity to literally fight with the Speaker of the House, who is in charge of America's purse, over how funds are used, and saying things have been debunked, and he literally fact checks her like 3 times and says, no, that's false. If we're going to talk about the facts, we're going to talk about the facts. That's what I love, is that even whenever the White House and all of them are trying to say that all this is misinformation about how FEMA funds are used, that the people are seeing through all that, and they're seeing the truth.
We rebuilt the military, and then he gave away a lot of it to the Afghans. If he gave it to, the Taliban, I think in the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And then when you think about it, I think Putin really just said, hey, this is a good time because these people are incompetent. Putin would never have gone into Ukraine. October 7th would have never happened. And you know what else? Inflation wouldn't have happened.
Do you believe that they used money from FEMA and gave it to the illegal immigrants? Because the White House is saying that that was misinformation as well.
No, it came out from there, and everybody knew it, and it was released from them. Then all of a sudden, a week later, they come out with a different scenario. And they have so many different pots of money. They just, it just melds. Nobody knows it. Nobody has any idea. That group has no idea what's happening. Look, it's the worst president and the worst vice president in the history of our country. They're horrible. And he can't stand her for one simple reason. She overthrew him. But she didn't do it. The party did.
The
Call it the
machine.
deep state, whatever it is, but the party did it. And it was really a coup. And he is a very angry guy. And actually, I think he looks better now because now we're comparing him to her. And for the first time, he looks a little bit better. But he's a very angry guy. Look, he got 14, I'm not a fan, but he got 14 million votes. She got no votes. She never made it to Iowa. She was the first one out of 22 people running. She was the first one to drop out. We seem to be up in the swing states in every one of them. And it doesn't matter. Look, I've worked 32 days in a row, and we have another 25. And I intend to work every one of them. I'm not going to take days off. Let's take a little vacation, everybody, right? We're running to save our country, so we're not going to be taking any vacation. We had such a day a little while ago in Butler. You saw that we had 101,000 people show up. 101,000 people. A tribute to Corey, the firefighter, and a tribute to a lot of things. And it was an amazing, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it, actually.
Well, the pictures were incredible. Are you able to register some of those people to vote?
Yeah.
Are you getting those ballots in the boxes?
We do. We register a lot of people when we do rallies and when we do things like that. And we have the endorsement of Elon, as you know, Elon Musk, who's great. He's a great guy. He had such a good time. He put the black hat on. I didn't even...
Dark MAGA.
He calls it dark MAGA. How cool is that, right? He calls it dark. He's a great guy. But he's given us a really powerful endorsement. He's out campaigning in Pennsylvania today. He's actually campaigning.
That's pretty
because
sweet.
He says if we don't win, we're not going to have a country.
He said this will be the last election if Donald Trump doesn't win. He's very worried about freedom of speech, censorship.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can do about that?
Well, I think that we just have to win. The only thing you can do is to win. No, these are bad people. And they're surrounded by very bad people. I think they're surrounded by much worse people than they are. Joe didn't really know too much about where he was, and Kamala's worse than him. Joe is much more competent than her.
Gallup polling says only 57% of Americans are very or somewhat confident that their votes this year will be accurately cast and counted.
Well, probably
The
right.
percentage who say they are not at all confident in the vote is now 19%. It was 6% in 2008.
I don't feel confident. When you have mail-in voting, Jimmy Carter had a commission on it. Nobody does mail-in voting. Now, you look at other countries, France, they go to paper ballots. France had it, and they had a lot of problems.
But you don't want to discourage people from mail-in voting.
No, I don't. Look, we have to win the election, and then we have to really fix this whole thing, because you need borders. I built 571 miles of wall, and they sold the wall for 5 cents on the dollar. You know, it's very expensive. It's exactly what Border Patrol wanted. They
Wasted
sold the wall
so much money.
for 5 cents on the dollar. And I said, you know, they want open borders. They want open borders, and they're always going to want, and she's always going to want open borders. That's the $64,000 question. Why? I have no idea. Maybe they hate our country.
One of the elements of the border has brought in Tren de Aragua, this Venezuelan gang, quite dangerous. You told us about this.
Not quite. You could take the word, it's just pure dangerous. They're evil.
And you told us this back in 2015 and 2016, that Venezuela was emptying their prisons and they were coming here, and you were mocked for it. How did you know back then that these Venezuelan gangs were coming to America?
Common sense. It's just common sense.
Right there.
If I'm running Venezuela like their gentleman who's becoming very rich because we're buying oil from Venezuela. You can believe this? We have more liquid gold under our feet than anybody else, and we're buying oil from Venezuela. He's emptying out his prisons, but he's not the only one. It's not Venezuela. It's everyone all over the world. The Congo in Africa, we've taken in hundreds of people from their prisons. The Congo, all the way in Africa. Many, many countries. The Middle East, we're taking in massive numbers of people and many terrorists, and they're coming into our country, and they're Middle Eastern terrorists. And from Asia, we're taking in, and a lot from South America.
There was an Afghan refugee charged with plotting U.S. Election Day massacre.
Nothing surprises me.
What about that, though? Are you expecting chaos on Election Day?
No, I don't think so. Not from the side that votes for Trump.
But I'm just wondering if these outside agitators will start up on Election Day. Let's say you win. I mean, let's remember, you've got 50,000 Chinese nationals in this country in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
You've got people on the terrorist watch list, 350 in the last couple of years. You've got, like you said, 13,000 murderers and 15,000 rapists.
Right.
What are you expecting? Joe Biden said he doesn't think it's going to be a peaceful Election Day.
Well, he doesn't have any idea what's happening in all fairness. He spends most of his day sleeping. I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of Election Day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're the big, and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
I'm Steve Ducey.
Let me tell you this, guys. I think about this a lot because it only takes one person. There's only been, remember, there's 50 million people in the United States now, and 2 people tried to take out Donald Trump. It's a very, very small percentage, but it still can happen. And that's all it takes. And I just pray that, Donald Trump stays safe. I pray that elections, whenever people go vote, that they're safe. Best thing to do is vote early. we want to make sure that we get the votes in, because we don't know what's going to happen. We're going to be in it all day. I know that I've already told everybody, hey, on election day, you know, I'm going to vote early, but we're going to be streaming for probably 12 hours straight on this channel, because we're going to watch everything. We're going to be pulling in the news from everybody. It'll probably be our longest stream ever on this channel, but we are going to stream until we know either they're going to tell us that they can't tell us who won, or they told us who won on election day. But just want to say thank you to everybody that's watching. If you're not subscribed, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you don't mind, click the thumbs up like button. It really does help to grow the channel. And just want to say thank you so much to all the people that are joining the channel as joining the family as True Life members. Thank you to Shafiqa Rahim, Angela Reeves for the super chats. Y'all showed them some love in the chat. And just want to say thank you to everybody for y'all still checking on me. Guys, I'm still trying to get over this stomach bug or something that I got a couple days ago. It's still kicking my butt, but I'm trying to do my best to make sure that I want to bring you the best, most up-to-date news of the show that's things that are going on, the polls and whatnot. But I love you all, appreciate you all, and know that I'm going to do my best to always be here for you. Y'all take care, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.